with Maurice R. Alexander, 3180 Indra, I-N-D-R-A Road, South Venice, Florida. Phone 813-493-1545 at his home, Friday, March the 3rd, 1989, with Helen Earley of the Oldsmobile History Center. Tape 1 of 1 tape. Well, Mory, you tell me who you are and where you're living now, and then we'll take it from when you hired in at Oldsmobile. Why you came there instead of some other place.
Okay, I'm Mory Alexander. I live at 3180 Indra Road, South Venice, Florida right now. I've been living here since I retired in 1982.
When did you hire in at Oldsmobile, Mory?
I hired in Oldsmobile in 1945, I believe.
Who did you talk with in the employment office?
I can't tell you who I talked with in the employment office.
Okay.
But I was interviewed in the plant layout department under Phil Cartwright.
Okay, where was that located then?
In Building 40.
Second floor?
Yeah.
Okay, Phil Cartwright.
Phil Cartwright, and I think Jim Edwards was the supervisor over him.
Okay.
No.
And you were interviewed for what job?
Draftsman and plant layout department.
Okay, what did plant layout do?
Well, at that time we had those A-frame racks where all the layouts was made on boards about 3 foot by 4 foot square boards, and we pasted paper dummies on the boards, which was machinery, and pasted pieces of paper on it, which indicate conveyor lines and other paper for aisle lines. And
was this made to scale?
oh yeah, it was 1/4 scale. From that, of course, they was upgraded, went to a 3-dimensional model layout boards. But
was this for all of the plant, all of the operations of the plant?
Oh yeah, all of it was.
You put on this 3-dimensional thing later.
Yeah, that came about
After
many years later, probably.
Okay.
15 years later. I don't know exactly about that.
So what did you do during the war?
Well, let's say when I was in high school, I was working as a co-op for a Hill Diesel Engine Company on Kalamazoo Street.
Okay.
And when I graduated from school, I continued working there for a short while. Was unhappy there. Thought I could upgrade myself, so I went and applied for a job at Oldsmobile, and that was in 1945. And I hired in there. I worked in plant layout department for probably about 2 months. Then I was called into the service, and then of course I was gone. I left there from 1945 to 1948. I came back to Oldsmobile, and that. When I came back at that time, they wouldn't take me back in plant layout because they had all the openings filled, and they did give me a job in the connecting rod department.
Where was that located?
That was in Building 28, I believe.
Who was your boss?
The
superintendent?
No, I don't. I think Lee Church down in the motor plant was the superintendent, but my foreman, etc., I do not know. Can't.
Okay.
That's been a while back.
What did you do in that department, actually?
Well, I ran the drill presses, a drill press that drilled the hole through the connecting rod, the oil hole. It was a machine that had I ran about 4 machines. Each had about anywhere from 4 to 6 drill heads on it. You kept putting the rods in one fixture and then keep on going down the line. When you got all done, you'd come back and start over again. So I worked there for about 7 months, I guess, before they had an opening for me back in plant layout. And at that time when I came back here, then I was working for Phil Cartwright.
Do you remember what you were earning in the,
Well, how about $45 is probably, it strikes me about a week's wage.
okay,
It's
okay.
something like that. I threw away all my old things a few years ago. Not too many years ago, by golly. All my
Check stubs.
well, I had some that was. I says, "Look at this! You can't believe it." Anyway, that was.
So then, 48, you went into the plant layout.
Yeah, right. Then they.
Working for Phil Cartwright.
Well, as a supervisor, but under him was George Fernsler, and he was my my foreman, you'd say. And that was, I was in assigned to the sheet metal and sheet metal department at that time, metal finishing department.
You know,
That's in building 27B.
what did that do? What did you do there on the sheet metal?
Well, I was in plant layout. I was,
Yes.
but well.
That's the specifics of what you really did is what we're interested in.
Actually, that's about this. You figure out it's the same way with from that, along with everything prior after, on from that you just figured out where machinery and equipment was supposed to set to get your smooth flow of operation from one part from one point to another, and means of getting it there, which involved designing and developing slides, conveyors, hooks, racks.
Were there anything special about the handling systems of the sheet metal?
No, I guess I wouldn't say it. Nothing unusual that I can think about right now.
Were they running the metal to the stamping plant, or just what?
No, in the metal finishing, from there it went to on to be painted. And it left the sheet metal finishing part and went to be painted, which was in the next adjacent building, 27A. It had dip ovens where all the fenders, hoods, and all the parts ran through a dipping process and came out dried at the other end, and then from there they went on to either be put directly onto the car if they didn't need to be a final coat of paint, or they went on to building 27A, which was the actual paint building at that time. So I guess that was.
But this was all under plant layout?
Oh yes, oh yes.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody else had the plant layout end of it for the painting, as well as somebody had it for the engine plant, somebody had it for the axle plant and final assembly, but I was just assigned in the
sheet metal?
Sheet metal finish at that particular time.
Metal finish, okay.
Yeah.
How many were in that area? How many were in that department?
Just, you mean in plant layout department?
On the sheet metal, working on the sheet metal.
Oh. Probably about 50 people, I gotta guess.
Hmm.
Because you had hoods, you had fenders, you had rear fenders at that time, and you had front fenders, so there was a group worked on front fenders, a group worked on hoods, and a group on the other.
Did you also work on the deck lids too? Trunk lids?
No, that all came from Fisher Body.
Okay.
Yeah, we just had the front end of the car that we had at that time.
Mm-hmm.
That was all.
So these pieces that you worked on were already stamped
Right. It was all stamped.
before you got them, before they came to your area.
That's true.
Mhm.
That's true. Yeah.
And then what did you really do on them when they went through your area, though?
I didn't do anything with them.
Okay.
All we did is figure out where the,
Transfer the movement of
yeah, how to do
Okay.
that. That's what
All
plant
right,
lay is all
that's-
about.
Okay, very fine.
Right. Walkinshaw knows all about that.
Yes, but you see, we really wanted to get it on tape in your words, too, see? That's,
Yeah. Okay.
that's why I was so persistent.
Well,
So somebody who didn't know what plant did on sheet metal would know if they were, for some research project, they needed to know, they could listen to your tape.
yeah. True. But it was the same for other people that worked in other departments. Somebody that had the engine plant, they had to figure out how to get the cylinder block from one machine to the next machine, and et cetera, and either by conveyors or
Or some type of automated equipment.
true.
You had conveyors in your area?
Oh yeah, they had, after they got done, usually with the metal finishing of the part, on which was done on a buck or fixture, and then they usually hang the part onto a conveyor line, which would take the part to the
No, the paint.
paint department.
Okay.
And then they would transferred from that conveyor onto a conveyor that went through the paint dip
Now,
operation.
was that transfer done by hand?
Oh yes, that was all done by hand.
Okay. How long did you work in that area?
Well, I can tell you, I have to look at my little diddle sheet here to tell you.
Okay.
Metal finishing, the service, drill press, cutter. It appears that was when I started there in 1945. I worked there probably for about, like I said, 2 months under George Fernsler and Dave Cheney. And then I went in the service, and I came back drill press operator in Conrad, 9 months. Okay, then I came back, and I was back in the sheet metal finish. Oh, it appears I was also in the press plant along with that.
And where was the press plant at that time?
The press plant was adjacent to the metal finishing,
Okay.
which was Building 50 or Building 56. It appears I worked there in 1948 to 53.
And then after that, what happened?
Oh. After that, we moved from one department to another. 1954, I went into just press plant only, it appears. 54 and 55, I worked for Richard Whiters.
Dick Wires.
Dick Whiters.
What'd you do for him?
I did the same thing I did.
This is still all under plant layout?
Oh yeah, it's all. I've always worked under plant layout. I've never been worked in other than that first. After I got back out of the service, where I worked on a drill press operator in the connecting rod part.
Okay.
That was 9 months.
What about the installations of automated equipment? Do you recall when they started to come in more and you did less manually?
Well, there was nothing that came in that
You don't remember any major installations?
that took any thing off what I actually did. It did off the people that worked on the line.
Yes, well, but you still were concerned with that.
Oh, definitely.
Yes, that's why I was referring to, do you remember any major automotive installations? When did they cease hanging these parts manually on the conveyor and an automated system took over? Like before they would go to the paint dip, for instance.
As far as I know, when I still left there, they were still hanging them.
Still doing it manually?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's almost near impossible to, it's not really cost justified to automate something like that, to try to hang it on a conveyor.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's the way I feel about it. As last I know, they were still taking them out of off a rack, putting them on a buck, except that they did have some more sophisticated machinery for doing the metal finishing. But as I say, I haven't worked in the metal finishing department since 1948, so
That's a long time ago.
or no, it was well, maybe 48 to 53, sheet metal finish 53.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not that knowledgeable on what's going on now.
Yeah, well,
Really?
interested in what was happening when you were there. You remember any interesting incidents that happened regarding the different installations or what you were working on, plant layout? Things that were developed in your area?
Well, I can't, no, I guess I gotta say I don't,
No special
can't.
handling systems that you worked on?
not in that end of it, no. When I got in the press room, it was doing more automating in the press room, but not so much at that time in metal finishing.
Mm-hmm.
But most of my years at Oldsmobile has probably been in the engine plant or final assembly. So
Okay. Where was the engine plant when you first were in it?
I believe it's still the same place where it is, or most of it.
28?
Doing 36,
36.
38,
Okay.
28,
Mm-hmm.
22, which is now 22. So that's, I spent many years in those areas, groups.
Who was your last boss before you retired?
Paul Pashasnik I worked under,
Okay.
which was he worked under Frank Fowler.
Mm-hmm.
And I was working at building 3275 area, final assembly area in that time.
Mm-hmm. What kind of a man was Pashasnik to work with?
He was unusual. Not the best of supervisors that was ever put out. However, that's the way it goes sometimes.
Mm-hmm. That's true. You mentioned Frank Fowler.
Yes, of course, Paul worked under Frank Fowler, and I also worked directly under Fowler before Fowler was a supervisor, too.
Mm-hmm. What kind of a man was he to work with?
Oh, he's very, very good. He is probably one of the more easier ones to get along with than any other ones, really.
Mm-hmm.
He's very good. He's highly recommended.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned Jim Walkinshaw.
Oh yeah, Jim was a super guy. Can't deny that a bit. But like I said, I worked for Fernsler, Waters, Al Porter. Al Porter was probably one of the easiest going guys that I've ever worked for.
Why do you say that?
Well, seems like there was always a lot less friction on anything.
Mm-hmm. You remember any special problems that came up and were hard to resolve?
Oh, I had a lot of them with Paul Pashasnik. Matter of fact, it was to a point where he left or I had to leave. And at that time I was transferred over to final building 90, I guess, worked plant layout over there. So it was either that or I went to the engine plant, I forgot which one. But anyway, that took care of that. However, after several years, I was back working for Paul Pashasnik again. So I guess we resolved our main differences. And we got along fairly well.
Had you planned to retire, Mory, or did you take an early retirement, or?
Oh yeah, well I did take the early out, but I had made plans for retiring. I was working on my plans for retiring before I got the opportunity to.
I was wondering if you might not.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I worked for, I was making, well, that was in 1975. On my vacations, I'd come down here in Florida and look around for property and look around. I bought this place here in Venice in 75, and after I bought the property, I started designing a house. And I got that designed in 79, and I knew someday I would be retiring, but I didn't figure on retiring as early as I did. But when they give you an opportunity to, where you're almost working there for nothing, you better take it. So that's how I got here as early as I did.
You had about, what, 30 years?
I had 36 years.
36 years.
Yeah, all total. And most of them have been real good. I've been real happy there, and don't regret it a bit.
Do you remember ever seeing any of the brass come out in the plant?
Oh, yeah, many times. But
Wolfram, would he be on?
only on occasions. Every time one of those people from either Detroit or New York came through the plant, we always had a big cleanup, get things in order. And that was, I guess, to be expected. Try to make things the best you can.
What were working conditions in the plant? Pretty good?
Well, if you didn't have to work there, we thought they weren't bad, but I do remember the day when I was working in the engine plant that I couldn't hardly get up to go to work because I hated it so much myself. But after I got my approval to come back up and plant layout, I made a whole different life.
Life looked bright.
So if you can't do something you enjoy doing, you better find something else to do, because life is too short to be unhappy with what you're doing.
Do you remember any labor problems?
No, I've never been involved with any of those, and I don't remember any that was caused or at least none of my doings I know of anyway.
And what was your position when you retired?
I was senior plant layout engineer.
Did you have people working for you?
No. I have on occasions, but not as a steady
Okay.
person. When I needed some extra help or something in a certain area, they would assign somebody to help me get things done a little faster maybe, and I did have some work with me, and you may say for me, but most of it was not. Well, I don't know what else I can tell you, but
Well, if you've got something else, we can put it on. Why, if not, why we won't.
but like I say, okay, I've also worked at Plant 2.
When was that?
Worked in Plant 2 in May 1968 to May 69.
Okay, who did you work for over there?
Dick Niles.
Okay, what were you doing there? Still in plant layout?
Oh yeah, I was always plant layout. I've never worked on anything but plant layout. But that was a whole new ball game over there.
How was that different?
Well, you're working with different types of equipment, heat, hot metal, where and the plant is more dirtier because of the hot metal and the conditions under the heat and furnaces and stuff like that.
Well, would you have to find ways of moving hot metal?
Oh yes.
What does plant layout do with hot metal? If somebody didn't know.
Well, you still use mechanical means always on that when you're using hot metal, either tongs or hydraulic equipment or overhead cranes to move it, or
This was all automated.
well, it was more automated, yes, than regular like sheet metal finish, yeah, or sheet metal.
Was this in the bumper plating? Why was the metal hot? What were they doing with it?
Oh, you take a hunk of iron that's just a square, and then you ending up to be an axle in the shape around, or it gets upset and bent over, or for your front knuckles and.
So it was going through some heat treating
Oh yeah, it goes
process
from presses that forges and presses them in that
into
direction.
a shape.
Right.
I see.
Yeah.
And it was plant layout's responsibility to see that the material moved along.
That's right. It's the same way with every place, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Plant 2 was the only other place outside of Plant 1 you worked in.
Oh no, I worked at Plant 3 from 1960 to 1961 also, under Dick Niles.
And who was head of Plant 2 when you were there?
Well, Dick Niles was over
Also?
Plant 2 also.
I see.
He was head of Plant 2 and Plant 3 also at that time.
What
So-
kind of a person was he to work with?
Well, he was a very, very good, well liked and very good person. So yeah, we got along real well, and I enjoyed working with Dick. He was a good man.
But you were in the main plant when you retired.
Yeah,
Back in the main plant.
Yeah, I was back in the main plant. I was probably in the main plant from 1980. Oh, probably from I was in building 90. And probably it was well, I was there for about 5 years, so it had to be about 78, 77, in that neighborhood. I don't know, I've forgotten right now exactly. Because I'd worked in the main plant and the final assembly in building 90, and then I was in the area, and then I was over in building 32 and 75 on the last part of when I did retire.
And then you retired April 1st, 82.
I believe that's about right, yes.
Okay. Well, Mory, I know I
Here.
taxed your memory.
Retired, yeah. April, retired on 3/31/82. Well, that was the last day of work.
Oh, yeah.
Last day of work was 3/31/82. So you can say I retired. You want to